Hello everyone, hope all of you are doing good. So, today we will be on day 25 and this particular portion on the constitutional and non-constitutional bodies, statutory bodies, okay, is very easy and it is very important from the mains point of view, even for GS, even for the prelims. But the key challenge students face is firstly that they do not actually understand the effective working of these organizations, these institutions, alright. And second important thing is that you will have to be a little more precise with respect to the facts. So, you have to have a thorough revision of the facts also with respect to these particular institutions, alright. And when we want to differ institutions from GS and political science, so there are also scholars which talk about the working of these various organizations. You have to quote certain books, you will have to quote certain facts, like you can quote when working of CAG is asked, you can also quote the Vinod Rai's book. Okay. So, there are many scholars, Naveen Chawla has also written a book, so former election commissioner, right. So, you have to collect a variety of ideas and then put forth them, that will distinguish and give you marks in the IGP portion. Okay. So, today we have tried to link the essence of political science with respect to when we study these institutions. So, I hope it helps you. Okay. Now, so statutory commissions, so we know this is about our syllabus and usually questions have been asked from them. Okay. Now, so this particular question, the National Commission of Minorities is a commission with a major role, elucidate. Okay, fine. So, in this particular question, majority of the students will be talking about what? The National Commission of Minorities NCM is National Commission of is a commission with a major role. NCM is a commission with a major role. All right. Now, what is it that you will have to do pertaining to NCM? So, many of you will be writing about the functions, you will be talking about the limitations, what role it is playing, you will write about the composition. Now, how you will differ this answer in political science and how you will differ this answer in GS. So, the challenge comes here. Okay. So, here is where we bring the scholars, okay, which talk about minority rights. So, when we talk about Bentham's principle, okay, so what does Bentham say? Bentham says greatest happiness of greatest number. So, this becomes problematic because who is ignored? Okay, right? It is the minorities which will be coming to be ignored. The second idea that there can be a majority rule, but along with this, what needs to be complemented? It has to be minority rights, and it is the onus is on the majority in order to make the minorities accommodative, and recognition of the rights of minorities has to be there embedded like it is there even within the Indian Constitution. So, you bring in scholars, you bring in various principles on the basis of which minority rights have been included in the Constitution. So, first you start with the right of minorities, and in the right of minorities, what extent National Commission of Minorities is playing a role, you will have to focus on that. Okay? So, it should have been done first with respect to the debates on the principles which guide minority rights. Multiculturalism also you can inculcate over here, okay. So multicultural perspectives also talk about minority rights. This is how your answer will become different in IGP than your answer in GS. सेम क्वेश्चन जीएस में आएगा तो वही फंक्शन, कॉम्पोजिशन, रोल लिखोगे, ठीक है. तो डिफर कैसे करेंगे? डिफर करेंगे जब हम ये थियोरेटिकल इनपुट वी विल ऐड, ओके. नाउ सो देन द क्वेश्चन विल बिकम ऑटोमेटिकली 2 marks increases. All right. Now, so let's see how this has to be done real time. Fine. So the concept of democracy is based on what we say. So I have started with democracy is based on several competing principles, such as the Benthamite maxim of greatest good for the greatest number and the other principle majority rule and minority rights. The greatest good for the greatest number is what? That governments must make decision which benefit the greatest number of people possible. And majority rule and minority suggest what? That even governments elected by a popular majority are obliged to protect minority rights. And these principles have the potential to come into conflict with each other, and however it needs to be balanced by the elected governments charged with running democratic states. So we started with how in democracy there are several challenges, there are several competing principles, and in the context of minority rights we were talking of the competing principles that are there, okay. Therefore, constitutions of many if not most democratic nations provide for the protection of minority rights even if a majority elects the government. Ideally, a government is obliged to balance between the majority and the minority rights, okay. So we establish the theoretical input. Then we will be talking of what is the working. So what are the capacity challenges before the National Commission? Human resource deficiency, limited role of the state minority commissions. So there are certain states, you know, which are cooperating with respect to creation of SHRC, Human Rights Commission, but minority commissions have all the state constituted remains a matter of debate. Underutilization is of technology. And yes, then the impact. So with respect to human resource deficiency creates high case pendency, there is non-redressal of grievances, and limited role of state minority commission also, because it is there, then high case pendency is there, non-redressal of grievances there. Then underutilization, which means lack of predictability in schedules of the hearings pertaining to the violation of these rights. Wastage of time and money for people travelling long distances for hearings. So you can talk out something more creatively in this format. Then, however, in practice, when a majoritarian government is elected, it tends to pay service to safeguard of the minority rights in favor of serving the interest of majority. Now, despite safeguards provided in the constitution and laws in force, there persists among the minorities what? A feeling of inequality and discrimination. So in order to preserve the secular traditions and promote national government integration, government attaches high importance to the enforcement of safeguards provided for minorities. Now, not necessarily we have to stretch the argument too far, okay, but yes, this is the thread line that you will have to take, you know, your idea has to develop, all right. So how in democratic states, what are the competing principles, what should be done for the protection of rights of minorities, how they should be brought within the sphere of the constitution, okay. Now, so we need what? We need effective institutional arrangements for the enforcement and implementation of the rights of the minorities, okay. So yes, government has resolved to set up minority commission for this regard, and we have it. So the NCM consists of a chairperson, vice chairperson, and 5 other members who should be what? Persons of eminence, ability and integrity, okay. And they hold office, so there is a change here, it is 3 years, all right. Now, the chairperson of the commission is also made the ex officio member of NHRC, that we know, fine. Then what are the functions? So functions, yes, with respect to progress of the development of minorities in the level of the state and the center, then working of various safeguards which are provided in the constitution, to what extent they are done. Okay. Then effective implementation of safeguards for the, so what should be the way forward, even that is the role. We have to even take a review of the implementation of the policies. So this is something which will be common in all the all the institutions, okay, which have been set up for specific purpose, whether be it backward classes, whether be it minorities, scheduled caste, scheduled tribe. So they review the working, whatever the constitutional provisions, to what extent they have been common ideas. What will change will be the composition, okay. Then looking into specific complaints also for deprivation of rights. They also conduct studies, research on the question of avoidance of discrimination, appropriate legal advice, welfare measures in the respect of any minority, okay. However, we have to examine what are the challenges and limitations of the commission, because if NCM does not function effectively, then it will become very challenging to protect the the rights of the minorities with respect to the institutional safeguards. So in this context, with respect to limitation, so like there is a special criteria, okay, for NHRC, NCW, NCBC of special knowledge and experience in matters pertaining to subject, but this no requirement is there. So there is no such requirement NCM that they need to have special knowledge and expertise. So people without possessing a special knowledge and expertise of the minorities have been appointed, okay. They don't even have the knowledge of basic law on minorities. Then proper place with respect to its consultative status has been given or no, okay, in matters of the, so whether the commission has been consulted when government policies, programs have been there, has it been given its due place, that also remains a matter and a limitation, okay. Then there is no corresponding provisions exist in relating to the NCM, which has greatly compromised the position of the commission. Now what is this regarding, okay. Now whether these NCM, whether the statutory body should be in the first place consulted, to what extent, who keeps a check on whether consultation has happened on the working of these institutions, this is also a problem, okay. Then supportive institutional mechanism, whether state governments have also created or no. So there is no binding on this regard, even the advice that it gives is not binding in nature, okay. So it becomes like an appendage of the government, right, dependency on the government is there for its constitution, for its working, right. So even state level the problem is there. Then there are violation rights of the minorities, to what extent, with such limited powers, whether it will be able to address these issues, okay. And even the recommendations of the commission and implementation remain questioned. So yes, what is it that it is very important, it said, augur the constitution of the minorities commission augur well for the protection and promotion of minority communities, yet the structural and functional dynamics does not allow it to become the true champion of the interest of its clients, okay, right. What has to be brought is uniform level of functioning in all times, even at all levels, even in the working of like the other institutions, how it has been done, how state are constituting it, even the states need to constitute this minorities commission, okay. So because it is on the mercy of the government, it is problem. And in this way, that if it is given that sufficient powers, then only it will be able to perform the key role that it has been assigned. So you will clearly have to know the working of these organizations. Is it understood? Fine. Now next very important body, we know it's very, very important for the exam. Trace the evolution of changing role of the election commission. Evolution of changing role. In India, what are the issues in its working and what reforms are needed? Now in this particular question, okay, trace the evolution of the changing role. So first you have to derive that from where election commission it enjoys a constitutional status. What is the basic ironic thing in the working of the election commission? So in its very fundamental role that it is supposed to perform, it has to tread a fine balance between which two things? One, it is part of the administrative machinery, which means for conduct of election. On the other hand, it has to promote free and fair election, so it has to manage the national interest of free and fair election, the trust people repose, because it is always said that the ruling party always gets more advantage, right, when elections are there. So, the very fundamental role of election commission is to maintain this fine balance, right, being part of the machinery also, and despite being part, it will have to what? Uphold national interest. So, it is at the central of what? It is at the center of electoral governance in India. It is at the center, and without a fair electoral governance, we cannot expect democracy will be truly democratic. Okay? So, first we talk about this role. Then we will be giving views of scholar. So, there is Rudolph and Rudolph who talk about this role, Muzaffar and Skedler. Now, the idea is student don't apply all this when questions on election commission, CAG have been asked. Right? If you apply, and then we talk about the phases of the evolution of the changing role. So, first phase, it adhered to what role it was given. Second phase was backseat role. Then there was activism that came in the working of the EC. So, the needed reforms for free and fair elections also came into being. So, we will have to talk about this what role. Come now. So, first, election commission is an independent constitutional body which has performed effectively as an independent body for the conduct of free and fair election. It has overseen the political development of India from a nascent post-colonial state. So, we were the one of those countries who brought UAF in our first general election. Okay? So, imagine to what extent we brought democratic politics, democratic practices. Fine. So, we were a nascent post-colonial state into an established today multi-party parliamentary democracy. Now, by its very nature, okay, EC is caught between roles of democratic protector and being part of the institutional establishment, which means the administrative machinery. It has been forced to tread this fine line between pressures generated by the party politicians and the national interest. So, Rudolph and Rudolph observe that election commission has a key position at the heart of the electoral governance, right, as an institution which acts as an enforcer and rules that safeguard the democratic legitimacy of the political system. So, yes, he is talking of the significance that has been attached to the election commission. Muzaffar and Skedler say good elections are impossible without effective electoral governance by the ECI, and election commission has certainly played a central role in the consolidation of democratic politics in India. So, these kind of views have to be brought. You have to upgrade your content. वही अगर लक्ष्मीकांत लिख के आओगे तो फिर कहाँ से मार्क्स मिलेंगे ऐसे सवालों में, ठीक है. Next, then we see the changing role in three phases. So, first phase until 1960s, okay, instituted running electoral praise based on the universal franchise. So, the given role it was doing it. Second phase, more inactiveness was there, a period of quiescence when it failed to react to the fundamental challenges to democratic process. So, we have seen what have been the challenges to democracy in India and how election commission has also not been able to what? Question and oppose these challenges. However, after 1990s, we see a phase of activism when it began to engage with a fluid party system and new aspects of political mobilization. Okay? So, these three phases have to be pointed because question is asking changing role, evolution of the changing role. And now obviously the other part of the question, right, which is about the issues in the working of the election commission and what are the reforms that need to be brought. So, very general, and also what are the steps taken by the EC. Now, these are all basic problems, basic reforms about what is it that you need to understand, that you need to distinguish your these themes when you are writing them. So, you have to overall look at the broad picture कि judiciary है, ठीक है, yeah, it is the working of election commissions, right, how this has evolved, how CAG was earlier, now what has been the enhanced role, what has been the key role when we look at CAG office in India versus other countries. So, you have to look at the big picture and you have to be more analytical, okay. That will also happen only when you change your content. वही लक्ष्मीकांत जो constitutional powers हैं, constitutional working में जो issues हैं, right, of these institutions, that will not suffice. So, change that approach, okay, and then yes, then things will be easy. So, if we talk about the steps taken by EC with respect to reforms, so electoral rolls, voter ID, electronic voting machines have come into picture, booth capturing and rigging, caste and communal hatred, how it has addressed, even criminalization, so bring in cases within RPA, okay, and what is the view of the Supreme Court on these, high cost of election, abuse of money power, none of the above, office of profit. So, all these things will have to bring in these issues, Supreme Court judgments, examples, a very good mix, rich content, analytical approach, only then such questions will become what? Better. All right. Thank you so much. We will come and meet you again very soon.